Welcome to the Jesus Over Everything podcast, connecting the power of God's Word to everyday life.
Welcome to the Jesus Over Everything podcast. We are here to serve Resurrection Church and Rooted Church in having conversations that bring the normal daily stuff of life in conversation with the reality of God's Word. Our goal is to have a conversation amongst pastors, not the definitive take of either of our churches or the final say, but in some ways, I grew up, and I think a lot of us have grown as we've been able to listen in on conversations between mature believers. And despite what we were all giggling about right before we started recording, we are decently, we aspire to be mature believers, elder qualified men. And so we want to let people in on your car drive or cleaning dishes or whatever. And over the last couple weeks, we have been talking about manhood. Right? Manhood. And we talked about biblical manhood in that we are called to lead and to provide and to protect. And we spent most of our time on lead and provide in the last couple weeks. Natan, are you looking for your old definition?
Definition guy.
I am looking for my definition.
Okay, I'll let you. I'm going to try. Ronnie, do you remember what his old definition was?
It's the benevolent.
Yeah.
The benevolent
Dictatorship.
No, it's like there's an I letter word starts with I. Instinct or
Instinct?
No.
A sense.
A sense. There it is.
I haven't
yes.
found it, but I remember a sense of benevolent responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
A sense.
A sense.
Mature masculinity
Here
is
we
a
go.
sense
Of benevolent
of
responsibility.
benevolent responsibility to lead, provide, and protect
For women and children.
women and children. Yeah.
At the level of a man's differing relationships. I even said it with your accent.
There you go.
Because you always say differing.
What is it?
Sorry, it's differing.
Oh,
But-
really?
No,
Okay.
I just, but I've heard you say it enough that I was
Did we
like,
talk about that part at the level of a man's differing relationships?
well,
Let's get that out of the way real quick. What does that mean, Natan?
So, well, we have a little bit because we have given illustrations that are don't only apply to married men.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's definitions of there's definitions of manhood that kind of start when you get married. You know, and no, we would say you have certain responsibilities. Of course, there are levels of influence, but you have your main responsibility is to your wife if you're married. But if you're single, you have responsibility to lead and provide and protect, your friends and you with your sisters in Christ and with your sisters from your family, your mom, your grandma, all of these levels.
right. Yeah, which is interesting because that'll probably come up is today we're going to talk mostly about protect.
Yeah.
And there are real ways that this definition of manhood, which I think is a biblical definition, it doesn't allow itself to be confined to just your home. Like even your society is impacted by men thinking, I have a created responsibility as a man, not just a created responsibility as a
Right.
husband or a
Right.
father, but as a
Yeah.
man.
So another
Right.
way you could say it is you can be a man without being married.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, of course.
That's good.
Right. And yeah, so even with ladies, with women that you don't know. So like there is a level of leadership providing and protecting in public transportation that you need to exercise, right? There is a level of leadership provision and protection that you need to exercise at work, in your office, in your job, at the workplace, right? At the supermarket, everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're not the spiritual leader
Right.
of somebody else's family,
Right.
right? Or if you don't have a wife and kids yet, you're
Right.
not right. So is that the part of at the level of your relationships? So
All right,
depending on
that-
which relationships you
So
have,
that's good. So on the opposite side, I'd say, a man is not a spiritual leader to someone else's wife, right? Just because of being a man.
Right.
Right.
Roles and relationships can create clarity. So you do have, as fellow church members, responsibility for each other. So that might make you more likely to speak into something you see as spiritually dangerous for a sister in Christ, even if the relationship shouldn't be like, well, all the men it's certainly not that all the men in our church have some kind of authority over all the other women.
right?
But
Yeah.
I think a brother
Yep.
in our church who looks and says, somebody needs to step up
Somebody
and
needs to.
rebut,
Yeah.
let's say, a false teaching, or let's say that the gathering has an assailant right?
Yeah,
So
our
we're gonna talk
building's
about-
on fire. We need to help people get out of here.
Yeah.
Yep.
The church cruise, Resurrection Cruise next summer.
Buy your tickets now.
Yeah, Mediterranean cruise. So if it's sinking, then the men should get on the lifeboats last,
Right.
right? And then what's fascinating is in the Titanic, it wasn't just believers who thought that.
Yeah, it's instinctual. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk about protection, which is it's overlapping with provision. Where does the Bible? But no, let's back up first. Can I ask this question? When I say a man is responsible to protect his family, what comes to mind for you? Just like, what's the first thing you think of?
Baseball bat underneath the bed.
Baseball bat under the bed. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Baseball bat. For me, my baseball bat is named a 357 Magnum. Because I don't want to swing twice. I want to pull the trigger once. But no.
I'm gonna launch it
Take
across
that out,
the
Trevor.
room.
Yeah, no. I'm going to throw a gun at them. No, I'm going to kill them. So let that, edit. No, don't edit. Leave it there. Let the people who thought about invading my home listening to Jesus over everything. It's such a niche market. Natan, what do you think?
For me, the first word that comes to mind is danger.
Danger. What do you
So,
think?
like, if you are protecting, it means there is something dangerous coming, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So as we record, northern Michigan is facing very profound flooding, and it's rare that our culture faces such existential, real. Oh, we are all at risk. People do all over the world, but the men up there need to be the people who put the sandbags on the dam, or make sure that there's not little old ladies stuck in homes that are downriver the Sheboygan. Have you seen
Right.
any of the stuff?
I've heard.
It's crazy up there right now. I mean, I'm praying it doesn't overflow but even in Michigan and around the world, there's people like that. So what else comes to mind
Right.
for you?
So and with that in mind, so men are supposed to be the ones helping here. I'd say, so what if a woman goes and helps?
Well, praise God.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's where the sense of responsibility, it's important.
Mm-hmm.
I say, like have as many women as you want, help. But men need to sense the responsibility. Like if nobody does it, we are supposed to do it.
And I'll say I'm comfortable saying that if women are on the job, we shouldn't consider it done. We should actually go, no, you don't need to do that. I should do that. So like, the same way that, like, it isn't just we're responsible to make sure that somebody's watching guard tonight. Oh, thank goodness Sally's willing to do it so I can get a good night's sleep.
Right.
We should be like, no, Sally, this is not, actually, I respect you more than that. And what God has called me to say, I'll protect.
Have you guys heard? I think John Piper, who has the definition, had this example. Tell me if you guys have heard it. Where it's like a guy and a girl on a date, and the girl is actually like a black belt. Have you heard this, Natan? So there's a little bit of it that's fuzzy for me. It's like they're on a walk. It's like their first date. She's a black belt. They get almost mugged by somebody. Do you remember what happens?
Well, he says that the man should sense this responsibility to be the first one to protect.
Yeah.
And then,
Even though she's the black belt.
right, man gets beat up
Yep.
by the assaulting person, right? And then the woman destroys the guy, right?
Yeah.
Because she's a black belt.
Yep.
But he fulfilled his responsibility
Exactly.
as a man. The guy beat up,
Right.
which I feel very that feels like my story. I think that's what will happen. With me.
Which I think
I have no fighting
I
instincts.
think the one place I would like Piper to maybe just be like, okay, so that wasn't very good preparation, stewardship. If that guy's not in a position other than disability, if that guy's in a position where he can't defend, maybe he hasn't been a good steward of the responsibilities God's called him to.
Meaning like he should have been in better fighting shape
Because
for that moment, you mean?
Yeah,
learn to fight.
Yeah, the comparable reality isn't whether or not the woman can do it. It's whether he could do his job. And Piper's illustration is like, well, he didn't do his job, but thank goodness.
Well,
the
I
woman,
think what he's highlighting in the illustration is what we were saying a second ago of like the man shouldn't go, all right, who's more, you're the black belt, so you do this,
more
and I'm kind of glad that you're doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
He should be like, oh no, I'm going first, even
Right.
though
Right.
you're
That's where
fighter than me.
that's where the definition points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you could very easily say, okay, let's examine this logically.
Yeah.
You're a black belt, I'm not.
Right.
So you go and do it. And no, the definition says no. Actually, the man should feel the responsibility to protect.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
if he doesn't get it done, you know,
And I think the extension of that too is like if somebody's going to have to take a bullet, it's the
Yeah.
man. Like
So-
there's the going into danger. If one of us has to die, if somebody's got to make the sacrifice, it's him.
Piper has this definition of protection. He says it belongs to masculinity to accept danger to protect women.
Accept danger.
Accept danger
To protect
to
women.
protect women.
Now, and
Yeah.
this is that's what's really encouraging is sometimes, the culture can be like, well, that's just, okay, welcome to the remnants of patriarchy. You're just perpetuating stereotypes.
Yep.
But I think we can show passages of scripture where the biblical worldview is what he just described. Men are called to a distinctive about manhood that accepts danger for the protection of the vulnerable. So where do we see that? Because I have some passages in mind, but what do you guys have in mind?
Well, if you have one in mind, let's go.
Okay, so let's just start with Genesis 2. We've gone there most times. And Genesis 2:15, Adam is told now the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Okay, so we talked about provide, and I'm not sure that we crystallized this. I think actually the two Hebrew verbs here are essentially the two things that we've described of leading. Provide and protect, to work or serve in the garden, and then to keep/guard the garden.
Yeah.
And
Mine's the CSB says watch over it.
watch over it. So watch, care, protection. Genesis 3:24 uses the same Hebrew word. After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the garden a cherubim, a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. It's the same root, at least. I can't remember exactly if the more, So those are the language. The language is, hey, work here and guard.
Provide and protect.
Yeah, provide and protect. And so it's not kind of like an arbitrary thought. Well, what do we mean this means? Even in Genesis 2:15, those two functions of male leadership are displayed. So is there another passage that comes to mind for you guys? Because I have a few more, but what's Numbers 1:4?
I'm going to Numbers.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So this is the nation of Israel. God is establishing the nation for the very first time, right? We're barely getting the initial laws. They're still not in the land. They still don't have a king, right? And God is telling them exactly what to do. And it says, these were the men counted by Moses and Aaron and the 12 leaders of Israel. Each one represented his family. All the Israelites 20 years old or more who were able to serve in Israel's army were counted according to their families. The total number was 600,000 and blah, blah, blah. So 20 men that were 20 years old or more are the ones that were supposed to be enlisted in the army. Okay? Now you say, does that mean female soldiers? Blah, blah, blah? No, the only thing I'm saying right now is that when God designed the nation of Israel's army, he said, this is who I want in the army.
Yeah, and this is obviously prior to the kind of technological advancement we have now that allows certain parts of the army to not be in as much danger immediately, or extends our capacities to, you think of like just some of the weapons we have now where you don't have to be anywhere near getting hit with a bullet to shoot something off.
Right.
And I think what you see in a lot of just the ancient pre-modern military is it's got to be the men, because in essence men were biologically built better for fighting and for being in combat and being in danger like that, before the advent of modern technology.
Right.
Yeah. And Nehemiah 4:13-14, it says, therefore I stationed some of the people, I will say just before I read more of this time is one of the most, I love the NIV for so many things. The NIV does a really bad job of like homogenizing the gender distinctions in a ton of these passages in a fascinating way. Like there's going to be passages we read that say in the Greek, act like men. And it says just be courageous. And I just, man, for other places where I really appreciate the NIV, I think this area is a place where it's like, oh, I think maybe it was reflecting too much of our culture. So anyway, Nehemiah, though, he says, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome. Fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives, and your homes. And he's talking to the men. And he doesn't. He does say, I think in the ESV. Would yours ESV or CSB?
No, CSB.
I'd love to hear that verse in CSB.
Okay.
And I probably should just brought an ESV right now but that one is an interesting one because it's oriented towards your relationships. It's not that men are stepping up to defend specific people in a society. Even property, fascinatingly, 4:14. What's it say?
It says, don't be afraid of them. Remember the great and awe-inspiring Lord, and fight for your countrymen, your sons and daughters, your wives, and your homes.
Interesting, right? Yeah, brothers is ESV, I think. So I think this one says your people.
Right.
But
ESV says brothers. Fight for
anyway,
your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes.
So he calls these men. The main reason I wanted to highlight that one was men are not war. They're not conflict pursuers, but they are, because of a fallen world and broken relationship, broken realities of the world. If they bear responsibilities of love, then they will inevitably, in a fallen world, have to take up the responsibility to protect and defend. And this is not a blanket, like when God says, guard it, that men are just supposed to be these nasty aggressors. But I think this is a verse that shows exactly what is inevitable for a man to prepare in his manhood. The relationships around me, the society I'm a part of, the children I have, the wife I've married, I almost said the women I married, but the wife I've married, right? And my home, even my personal property, your home. I think probably homeland is consistent with the understanding there. And by that, I mean like your tribe's territory, whatever. You defend it, step up and strongly step, which is interesting, isn't it? Because I don't think that's something that we often read in the scripture or remember,
Yep.
What's the next verse you have? Or did you have one, Ronnie?
I was going to talk. We'll go back to Genesis in a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's see what Natan has.
So I have one here from Jesus, and Ephesians 5 makes clear that the married relationship between a man and a woman, the man is to love the wife as Jesus loved his bride, right? So the wife follows the patterns of the church, and the man follows the pattern of Jesus as the head, right? And this is a beautiful passage in John 18 when he's in the garden and the mob is coming to take Jesus. Jesus says, "Whom do you seek?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these men go."
It's a great one.
This was to fulfill the word that he had spoken. Of those whom you gave me, I have lost not one. So I just have this picture in my mind of Jesus standing like in front of the apostles and say, "Who are you looking for?" And we know that all of the apostles, they fled.
Yeah,
right?
he says, "Take me though."
So yeah.
And in John 10, he had said that the shepherd lays his life down for the sheep when the danger comes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
He didn't. No apostles, no disciples died when Jesus died.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like they didn't get any of his followers.
Right. And that's where even the military, if we just jumped to some kind of inappropriate application of strength, I do think that I was, joking around about shooting an invader, but I do think that Christ's example of strength went into death. It wasn't just like he doesn't want Peter to take up the sword at that moment.
Right.
So we shouldn't be slapstick in when violence is appropriate or not. Interesting discussion.
Right.
So David says to his son, this is a great thing, a father to his son, when the time drew near for David to die, he gave a charge to Solomon his son. "I am about to go the way of all the earth," he said. "So be strong, act like a man, and observe what the Lord your God requires. Walk in obedience to him," right? It's one of those clear passages where the command to act like a man is the command to have strength. Proverbs 29. Yeah. The young men glory in their strength, and old men in their gray hair. And that's the biblical worldview is okay with that. It's not toxic masculinity for someone to be strong.
That's what it was just making me think how men can use their strength to destroy and bring danger and be threats. And I think that just, it just bears out if you look at who has committed the most violent crimes in every culture at every time in history. It's been the people with the most strength, the men.
Yeah.
And so, what's the flip side of that? That's a distortion of God's design for men to use their strength to destroy and to be threatening and to be dangerous.
Yep.
Right.
Well, then, okay, the goodness of God's design is that men have strength to protect others from the danger of, honestly, dangerous men.
Right.
I think when we talk about this, many would say, well, but women can be dangerous as well, or they
Amen. Sorry.
And even so, I have a report here from CBS, and you can see how they don't want to establish any distinctions between gender. So this is December 8, 2025. Millions of Americans have reported being victims of domestic violence. Right? So no distinction. We're not talking about women. We're not talking about men. Millions of Americans have reported being victims of domestic violence. And then it starts. Almost 5.4 million Americans have reported being victims of domestic violence. So
Americans.
Just Americans, so some women are violent to men, some men are violent to women.
Yeah.
It's just Americans, right? And then if you keep scrolling, it says, the majority, nearly 80%, were women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's just characteristic.
80% of those reports of domestic violence done by women, which is a very, very, very sad reality.
One time my brother, not to laugh at that.
You found it very funny.
No, I didn't find this. I was thinking my brother, the regional championship game, his senior year, he had 8 RBI, and his buddy Justin, shout out to Justin Barber, had 2. And the newspaper said Doran and Barber combined for 10 RBI. And Daniel had 8. Right. And Daniel was like, wait a second. I had like an incredible game. We combined for them. So that's the kind of the story, the lies in the way you skew it of men are on the whole built for strength and suffer the vulnerability
common
of
sense shows it, statistics show it, and then even you see that the biblical pattern shows it.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I feel like we had mentioned something a minute ago of like, so are we saying men should actually kind of be training and thinking about their physical bodies? Like, hey, I need to be ready to protect people physically if needed. Like, what does that mean practically for somebody?
That's a good question. I think so, but I think it's we have to be careful not to go into some mutated.
Yeah, I'm curious. What would make it appropriate, and what would make it? Now we've crossed a line into like, you don't need to be an MMA fighter.
Well,
what do you need to do?
Maybe I could use a caricature. Our culture is dealing with something, it seems like almost as pathological and pervasive as if women were making many drastic choices over the course of their upbringing in life that would lead them to the place where they are infertile and can't bear children. So we have such a video game addicted, gluttonous, lazy, our work doesn't require as much physical activity.
Yeah.
And so there's men across the board who are basically like, you would ask me to do what's intrinsic to what God created men for? And does that mean that everybody has to you're a big guy. Does everybody have to look like Ronnie? No. But the idea that, what if our culture, it kind of is heading that way, right? But all the women were like, well, it's only a few women who make sure they can still have a womb. Yeah. That I think that's how far we've gotten away from it. Not to say that we need to get given to the manosphere, to be clear. There's some men starting to say the only way to be a man is to Hulk up. And I think that's out of balance too. Pushback, what do you think about that?
No, I mean, if you want to talk about the body, I'd say, yeah, you got to keep your body, because there's other passages about that, but you got to keep your body in a state where it can be helpful.
Yes, obesity is probably the main thing I'm thinking of. Not guys not being ripped. I'm thinking about like
Yeah, which again,
obesity.
we
is an
talked about this
American
before,
epidemic.
but there's a way that the modern world we live in has made that just much more possible and prevalent, because we're not working with our hands. We're not, you think about some of the kind of cultures the Bible arose out of. Men were outside working all the time, and even if it seems pretty obvious that God, in His design of humans, there's male and female, but then we come in different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
It's like we people look different from each other, and that's actually good and fine and beautiful in God's design. So not everybody is going to be as big as Goliath was.
Right.
But there used to be a kind of just more of a demand physically on all of us. Their video games didn't exist, those kind of things.
Right.
It wasn't a sedentary world.
I think it's a state of mind. So it's this sense I want to develop, I want to cultivate a sense of responsibility to protect.
Right.
So it can mean many, many things, again, with these different relationships. But if we keep the definition of, to accept danger, right?
Right.
So I don't know, when I was in college, I rode the bus all the time. You guys?
No.
No, here in America, like no buses, right?
Not in
Spain,
Detroit.
in Spain,
Yeah.
Spain and Mexico, lots of buses,
Yeah.
right? So giving your seat up to a lady
Yeah.
was a normal occurrence, right? And that's the logic. It's like, okay, buses were crazy. In Mexico, buses are crazy. Standing up was a dangerous place. It was a very dangerous situation, especially like if it's packed with people, even more dangerous because of abuse and opportunities for abuse and stuff like that. So if I jump into the bus at 6 a.m. when nobody's there, and then I've spent like an hour in the bus and it gets packed, I should stand up and give my seat to a lady. And I know sometimes that could be considered like, well, what do you think? That your legs are better than mine? Like your legs are stronger than mine or whatever? You think I cannot stand in this bus? I'm not. I think you're perfectly capable of standing in this bus. But I know the bus driver is going to Mexico, drive this bus recklessly. And we're going to do through potholes.
Yeah,
and
you're saying
bumps
standing up was
and
more
everything.
dangerous, is what you said?
A lot more
Okay.
dangerous, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I'd say, why don't you sit here
Yeah.
and I'll stand up and grab that bar by, like with my life, you know?
Yeah.
But also, again, when it was packed, if I saw a lady, I'm like, I don't want you standing pushing against 15 men.
See, that's even a
Why
good
don't you
example
sit
of
over here?
that's like a basic example. It's like you don't need to be a ninja martial artist to be able
Right.
to do that. But you're basically saying like, hey, if one of us has to be more physically uncomfortable or like at risk of falling and getting hurt, maybe like it's going to be the
Right.
guy.
It should be.
It should be the guy.
And a lot of what we think of as like chivalry that's looked down upon, I think it came from just those inclinations. Like, hey, because my father always taught us to run ahead and open the door for elderly people too. It was elderly men as
Yeah.
well. It wasn't just, it was an honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hey, you're young,
Yeah.
run, get
Use
the
your
door.
strength to serve.
Right.
I
yeah.
thought about that one. Like, why do we open doors for ladies? Like, why do we used to, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think the answer is outside, dangerous. Inside, safe. So
Yeah, maybe that is.
so
Yeah.
you get inside quicker than I do.
Yeah. And it's a little bit more symbolic than it is
Yeah.
super practical.
Right.
Like it's like she's going to be okay. But yeah, I get it. Yeah.
right. That's where it came from. Maybe it's just lingered.
I,
It's
I
interesting.
guess so. Yeah.
So we can go back to Genesis.
Yeah.
But I wanted to read one more connection verse.
You do it.
Can
Let's
we read
go.
it in
I
yours?
think, yeah. What do you got?
It's 1 Corinthians 16:13.
Yeah.
So it echoes Nehemiah in some ways very similarly. But this is the one where the NIV, it says be courageous or something.
Yeah. So does the CSB actually.
Right. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, I don't love.
says act like men.
Yes. The ESV says act like men.
There's a footnote in the CSB that says literally act like men.
Right. So the Greek says
Yep.
act like men.
Right.
And that's where I think, again, I actually highly respect both sets of translators. But I wonder if now that we've seen a culture that kind of has trouble defining what is substantive to each sex, maybe we would reflect on that translation choice and go, oh, maybe it's good that the Bible has these places,
I mean, one thing it forces you to do though is when the fact that it translates it, be courageous,
Yeah.
is saying, okay, so you're saying it is a manly, masculine characteristic to be courageous.
Right.
Yep.
There's something masculine about
Yeah,
that.
into the fray. You know that Rudyard Kipling
Yeah,
poem,
I remember you sent that to me. Yeah.
If? Have you ever heard it?
I don't think so.
Oh man, shameless plug. I'll give it for you later. It's mostly in masculine, like it's mostly virtues. But one of the things he says is if you can take up a quarter mile, or it's like 2-minute run, like he says all these different things in the poem about, and the conclusion of the poem is, you'll be a man, my son. If you can lose what you've worked for in a turn of chance, and then not complain about your loss, just keep going. You got to, dude, it's an incredible poem. But one of the things he says is, if you can break into a run for like 2 minutes, you need to be able to do that, which is interesting, right?
Well, that's why it's very difficult where to draw the line. But if there's a fire at Walmart and two little kids get lost, and they are about to get burned, I would like to be the kind of man that is in the physical shape of being able to grab two kids and run.
Yeah.
But if there were only women in there, the women would do that with the kids.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Right,
for sure,
right.
for sure, 100%.
So it's like, that's where you see the distinctions. Like, it's not that women can't or shouldn't do that,
No.
protect that, but it's like, but if there's a man there, that's like, okay, well, now the default is
The sense of
he takes the
responsibility.
lead and does,
I like I mean, it's not Bible required, obviously, but like, I like the firefighters. They have to be able to drag 150 pounds a certain distance. To me, that is
makes
like
sense.
that's like a really practical. Hey, if you're not injured or facing some kind of providential hindrance, you should be able to do that, because they're basically training for what is the kind of circumstance that hopefully you'll rarely face, but that a man should be ready to, like, oh, my wife got knocked out when the burning building, and I need to get her out of here, or whatever. I think, but okay, what were you thinking about Genesis 3? Let's keep in there, and then we're going to talk about some practical stuff of it.
Well, we've been talking mostly about protecting physically.
Yeah, good.
And even last time we were talking about provision, we talked a lot about physically. And I think we should also go back to Genesis to see how, honestly, I think even more clearly and obviously in the text is the spiritual provision and protection that the man is called to, which is interesting because we already looked at Genesis 2:15 and saw, okay, he's supposed to work and guard the garden, which is, okay, if I think about it, that means he's kind of physically doing that. But then after Eve sins, who does God come to first to call to account? Comes to Adam. Who did God give his word to first and give the commandments to first? Adam.
Right. Yeah.
And so we actually see that there's the sin that Eve steps into. Adam was supposed to protect her from that, but he was passive. And that's the first moment of a failure to spiritually protect.
Right. He listened to her instead of, he should have said, wait, I remember what God said. He didn't say what this serpent is saying.
Right. Do you think, it seems to me like Genesis 3 gives the implication that Adam was right there? Are you of the opinion that Adam was right there when Eve ate?
Yeah. He says, no, it says it. She also gave some, or at least this
she gave
translation
some to him.
says she
No,
also
but I mean,
gave
like,
some to her husband who
When
was
the
with her.
serpent was
When
tempting.
when the conversation was happening, it's not in the text, but
Yeah.
Either
it
whether
seems
he
to
was
me
or
like
he
he
wasn't.
was right there.
Yeah, like a direct inversion of the creation order. That he was supposed to lead, and his wife was cultivating this world with him over the creation, and then now a created beast is leading them through the wife, husband following against God. It's really,
Because Genesis 3 in the curses,
he should have protected her. Yeah.
chapter 3, verse 17, and to Adam, God said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, which obviously he doesn't mean
Period.
period, like, oh, you listen to your wife, now everything's cursed. No, it means you knew the instructions, you knew the commandments, then your wife came and told you, hey, let's do something against God's commands, and you listened.
Yeah.
Right, which you should have not done.
Yeah, and I think, there's a passage I wanted to connect to about protection, but so this protection spiritually, it comes up with Acts 20 when Paul tells the elders there's going to be wolves that try to tear at the flock, and the elders are supposed to be men who do that, right? What other passages are you thinking of?
You know, I was thinking of in 1 Timothy when he's talking to these men and women that have been saved out of the world and the ways of the world. But in chapter 2, when he's talking to the men, he says, hey, rather than lifting up your hands and like fighting, like fist fighting, lift them up to pray now. And I just think it's an interesting, you think about men being strong and like we think about our strength being in like these fists like this. And he then makes prayer this picture of strength. He's saying, hey, take that strength that you have and that desire, like, because what do most of us think of when we think of a fist fight? We think of we're fighting, we're protecting. He says, no, fight in prayer, spiritually.
Right.
My favorite passage about that is Matthew 26.
What's it say?
With Jesus in Gethsemane. So Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane. He said to his disciples, sit here while I go over there and pray. And then he took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and he said to them, my soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me. And then Jesus starts praying, my Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. He comes back and he finds them sleeping. He says, could you now watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. So that's the danger aspect of it, right? Like you got to pray because this is about to get very, very dark.
Oh man, I wonder what those verbs are in like. I wonder how
the watch and pray.
Well, like guard and take care of the garden,
Might be
right? And
well, what I find fascinating is that a little bit later, the mob comes to take Jesus, and Peter wants now to protect Jesus by drawing a sword,
right,
and attacking someone, and Jesus basically says, no.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah, not the time.
I don't need that now.
right,
I needed the prayer when you were sleeping.
right. Watch and pray so that you do not fall into temptation.
Right.
Is the way he repeats it exactly in Luke.
Yep.
In Luke 22.
Yeah, exactly. In Luke, it repeated twice. Watch and pray so you will not fall into temptation. Peter goes to sleep, and then later
Tries to be
Peter
strong.
goes into physical protection. He's like, "Oh, I'll protect you physically," and Jesus says, "No, I don't need your physical protection. I'm going to this cross. I need your spiritual
That's very good point.
protection and collaboration and companionship by praying for me."
So this is where this actually raises a really interesting discussion that should hone or press forward biblical men. Is the created order is not undone. Okay, so God created men with all this design to be strong, to protect. But the example of Christ and his cross and the reality of the Spirit is that, as Paul would say, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. Or sorry, as God said to Paul, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. And that there's a depth to masculine strength that somebody could misunderstand if they think we're just calling people to physical strength.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's willing to lay his life down, resolutely set towards a sacrifice. Ephesians 5, a husband loves his wife, lays his life down for her, right?
Yeah.
Which I think you can see how, anyway.
Which actually comes with a spiritual choice first. Before you'll ever move your physical body to lay your life down for another person or a woman, there has to be a spiritual conviction in you that that's what I ought to do. Yeah. Which is where I was going to say that the fall in Genesis 3 shows us that the snake was a physical embodiment of Satan, but there was not an invader that came in and fought them physically. That the invader came in and fought them with words spiritually, and that was where the fall happened.
Right.
Was the failure of spiritual protection, not physical protection.
Right. Yeah. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Or Epaphras is described. This is another place where you said raising holy hands or whatever.
Yeah.
Epaphras is described as wrestling in prayer for you. He's working hard in Colossians 4, 12 and 13. And that's a word of like agonizing. I think that inner spiritual strength is not going to lead a man to be physically weak. So maybe we could say it that way. You won't be physically weak if you're cultivating spiritual strength.
Self-control.
But it's beyond and higher priority than physical strength.
Yeah.
Right? And so we could take the polls. Maybe I could say it this. This is what this poll, the way Isaiah speaks is I think, okay to be countercultural because it's the Bible. But let me just loosely use it. Okay, 3:12. Youths oppress my people, women rule over them. My people, your guides lead you astray. They turn you from your paths. So Isaiah is referencing their judgment in two ways, I would say, to interpret this verse. Youths are people who do not have wisdom, who are leading. Women are rulers who do not have strength, physical strength, who are ruling. Right. And the fact that people without wisdom and people without physical strength have to be the rulers is a sign of their empty.
The men are not.
Yeah, the empty cupboards. Yep. So, okay, in our culture, we don't want to fall that far, but we don't want to stop at physical strength, right? You don't want to go to the place where it's like, well, we don't have strong men. But we don't want men, we don't want physically strong men without spiritually strong men. I think I might be moving for the camera the wrong direction, whatever. You know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I had a conversation once in Spain with a Baptist organization that has several churches in Spain, and they allow female pastors, right? And there's a lot of female pastors in that Baptist organization. And I was talking to I'm just a man, not a director of the organization, but a man that had been a pastor, a preacher in the organization for many, many years, like 60, 70 years. And I said, so give me the biblical argument for female pastors, right? And he mentioned some verses, he's like, well, the Virgin Mary was the first witness to Jesus. I'm like, okay, but
Mary Magdalene, though.
At the end, his main argument for female pastors was, we have all of these churches in these organizations.
Yeah, it's pragmatic.
And we do not have enough male pastors for them. There's not enough men that want to be pastors. So there's a lot of ladies that want to be pastors, so we're just taking them. Am I right?
Yep. Yeah, I was going to bring that up a second ago. It seems like when you connect the dots from the protecting being a masculine trait, masculine distinctive, then that makes sense of why the qualification for pastor being to be a man. Because what does a pastor do? Protects the flock.
Yep.
Yeah. Lead, feed, protect.
Yep.
Yeah, very, very similar. And that's actually, I would say, in 1 Corinthians 14, when the scripture says in the context of prophets speaking in the church and the cross-examination of prophecy publicly, Paul says women should remain silent in the churches, and they are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home, for it's disgraceful for a woman to speak in the church. Now, I think I would say what he is touching on is the same thing that 1 Timothy 2 is touching on, when a woman's not supposed to be teach or exercise authority or have authority in the churches. This boundary setting or boundary measuring type speech. Because in Corinthian context, okay, we can make cessationist discussions or continuationist discussions another time. But in the Corinthian context, in chapter 11, women prophesy with their head covered. They pray or prophesy with their head covered, right? So they clearly aren't totally silent. They must be doing something, but he doesn't permit them to it appears, cross-examine or keep the boundaries and edges
as
of
like a protector.
As a protector.
Yeah. So the person who's gonna cross-examine speech as a guard, right? So someone says, "Hey, that's not correct," or that's what he's barring them from. I would say that's how I hold that passage, and I think it's consistent with his vision of. Obviously, those are passages where, it's interesting to talk through. It's words that ruffle feathers at times, but So protect. Let's be honest. Well, I shouldn't say this. Have you ever been in a physical protection scenario for your family?
Physical one?
Have you had to? I should have asked you ahead of time in case it's like a traumatic thing.
No, I'm trying to think.
Have you ever had a loud bump in the night and had to go downstairs and check?
I'll give you a very practical physical one.
Yeah.
Again, this is not for everybody, okay? But it's my conscience, my own personal conscience, okay? My family and I, we do gigantic road trips, right? Like 100 hours of driving.
Oh, you drive the whole way, don't you?
Right, to South Mexico, yeah. It's 52 hours to go and 52 hours to come back. Anyway, I feel responsible to do most of the driving.
Yeah.
Because it's a very the car in the highway for so many hours, it's a very dangerous place. Very, very, very dangerous place. And I want to be responsible for what happens in the car, with the car.
Yeah.
You know, I'm responsible to
So
protect.
that's the way you like say, hey, Karen, I'll shoulder this load.
Right. I'm not gonna tell my wife, hey, it's 100.
it's dangerous.
It's 100 hours. You'll do 50. I'll do 50. Right. Not because I'm a better driver. Whatever. You know. I've never.
No comment?
No comment. I the last 4 months have been very bad for me, so I don't have leverage right now.
Whatever is the most defeated answer. Whatever.
I've screwed up 2 cars in the past 4 months. So no, but it's not that. It's say okay, another car could bumped into us, or we could not see a pothole, whatever, and this whole family is dead.
Yeah.
Because of the driver paying attention and being watching and stuff like that.
So
okay.
it's a manifestation of protection.
I'm going to take that responsibility and only ask my wife to help me when I am super, super, super tired. And now it is actually, I will be putting my family in danger if I continue driving. So then she drives. But that's, you know.
I see what you're saying.
Or Abby and I did down to Florida and back this time. Sometimes we share a couple of spots. But actually, one of the ways I've started doing it is I'm feeling older and I've been like, you know what? I'm buying a hotel. We're gonna get 11 hours in.
Yeah.
We're gonna sleep a little, and then I can drive
As a protection decision.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yep. What about you?
I was gonna say I mean, praise God. I cannot remember right now any like physical dangerous situation from like another person or something like that. But there's been many times where there's a bump in the night and I've gone down there and you just kind of feel like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And whenever we're in like big crowds, I always feel that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just feel okay, we're in a big crowd and I'm kind of on alert and looking around and ready to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Abby's never put me in that spot, thankfully. And the reason I say that is
Of being in a crowd?
no, to have to protect her. But I say it that way because my mom, the last physical fight I was in was at least biblically defensible because my mom kind of was running her mouth in Mexico. And some guy, she's going to kill me for saying this, but like there was this guy, they were playing water polo and my mom wasn't. She was sitting on the side of the beach.
I was going to say, this is a very weird illustration.
No, there was these guys playing water polo in the resort pool. They got into an altercation.
Mm-hmm.
One of them threw the ball at each other, missed him, hit my mom on the side of the pool.
Mm.
And my mom like threw the ball back in and was kind of like, you guys need to grow up, whatever. And the guy started to come at my mom. Okay. And she was like, what are you going to do? Splash me? This is where she shouldn't have been. And she was like, mom. She said, what are you going to do? Splash me. Takes the water, splashes him and says, bring it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh Lord.
And I was like, I'm like, I think I'm 20 at the time. So, 5 seconds later, I had this guy by the throat and I threw him in the pool. And my dad had 2 guys squared up. And a big guy from New York stepped in, and it was like 6-on-3, but we were all just enough size that it didn't go any further. So only the one guy. But we all looked at my mom afterwards, and we were like, God called us to protect you, but you could keep it zipped.
You're not making this easy.
And so I don't let that record show on the podcast. She's going to kill me that stories. But we always, we'll laugh as a family. And we'll say, bring it. Because it's like, you could have just said, hey, guys.
The water splash might have irritated me more if I was the other guys.
I know, dude. Anyway, so that's why I think, it's been pretty easy to defend Abby.
Right.
Because she'll just walk away. But Claudia, when I was younger, that's a different. But now I'm in trouble. So you guys can protect me.
Protect
my mother.
Yep, we got you.
Realistically, though, the home at night. I don't know. There's other things like that where we.
Physically, I think it's clearer.
Yeah.
And that's why this definition is so helpful. I think a lot of men, we didn't grow up with a very clear definition of what it is.
Yeah.
And then you arrive at a crossroads and you're like, okay, so I'm working and making some money and you are working and making some money. So let's decide who works. Maybe you should work and I stay home. And they don't have a definition for what biblical manhood is. And then they try to make the decisions then, right? But with this physical protection, I think is very clear. spiritual protection, I think it's a place where men should step up.
Yeah.
Because if Ephesians 5
Yeah.
says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. So I think the husband should protect the wife with prayer and leadership to bring her to church and stuff like that. You know, teach, so that the husband can, when we die, come before Jesus and say, "Here is my wife. I've done everything in my power to bring her to you as holy as possible."
You give an account for your
And I think many men are just worried of saying, "I've kept my wife alive as long as I could."
Yeah. And I think that, in our culture, a lot of men, both in the church and outside of the church, that have not viewed spiritual things, the Bible, the things of God, as manly and masculine.
Right.
I think about even just something like, I feel like the common, this is what it means to be a man, is like, you don't talk about like what's going on below the surface, what's going on in your inner life, things like that. And then you just look at, well, what are the realities that the Bible says are spiritual and needed for spiritual protection? Things like confessing sin, something like that. Like that, it's this moment of humility and weakness. There's all kinds of things kind of working against men seeing spiritual leadership and spiritual protection as masculine. But I was looking at Ephesians 6 right after your passage, Natan, and just listen to the way Ephesians 6 talks about spirituality, prayer, knowing the scriptures, teaching the scriptures. Listen to the language it uses. Finally, be strengthened by the Lord and by his vast strength. Put on the full armor of God so that you can stand against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this darkness, against evil spiritual forces in the heavens. For this reason, take up the full armor of God, so that you may be able to resist in the evil day, and having prepared everything, to take your stand. Stand therefore with the truth like a belt around your waist, righteousness like armor on your chest, your feet sandaled with readiness for the gospel of peace. In every situation, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And he's using all this imagery of armor and weapons, things that we would use for protection physically, to describe the Bible and prayer, and a life that is open before God, and talking about things that matter, which I think are the kinds of things that in our culture have been like, oh no, that's kind of more the thing that the women do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where, man, it's not just, the religious things, but even like somehow the enemy has lied, convinced us that maybe a lot of protection is rebranded as like prudishness. So if a dad were to say,
we're not watching that.
We're not watching that.
Yeah.
It's actually mostly people think, like mom's going to say we can't watch it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. Which is really interesting, because I think that's sadly, isn't that what Isaiah was pointing out? Like, wait, if only the women care about what infects the minds and hearts of the family, that's a statement on the weakness of men in a church or a community. Right. Like, we should be more, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately, honestly, because so I have that stupid story with my mom, but like, it's rare that you do physical protection. There are moments, it's dark at night, you're on a road trip and you go to a gas station, whatever, right? I get it. But like, most of our protection is much less clear and more internal and spiritual. I mean, like, when there's an attacker,
but it's at the level of ideas and choices and the habits that we're allowing families to get into.
Isn't that what happened in the garden? So it's not just a knowledge culture. It's like,
that's what. Yes,
you were told to communicate what God said, and the enemy came in with a lie. We got to take thoughts captive, right? That's what 1 Corinthians 10 takes thought, or 2 Corinthians 10.
Yeah.
Take thoughts captive. And that's where, for me, like, okay, so a few times I've had, and this is so risky because you feel like good men don't want to be what we've seen or heard bad men are. And so we don't want to be domineering. And yet, I think there's guys that would feel like, can I really tell my wife, hey, I think this podcast is dangerous?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, can I really tell my wife, hey, and I would say you should be not micromanaging everything. Your wife has a brain and she's accountable to the Lord, and please help her have a relationship with the Lord, not one that's a conduit through you. But if you don't take seriously the idea that like false teaching can be digitized and streamed, you're not doing what God called you to,
Right.
you know? And has that come up for you guys? I mean, obviously, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but have you had to tell your wife, hey, I'm concerned about this resource or this thing or anything like that ever?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do you think of? Is there one you could tell us without hearing?
Well,
like,
yeah,
hey?
yeah. I mean, a few weeks ago, I mean, this podcast will be released later, but when everything was going on with ICE in Minnesota or Minneapolis, whatever it was, right? So my wife uses Instagram and Facebook, and of course, so my wife is Mexican. So it seemed to me like Instagram, Facebook, whatever, was just pushing news about this more and more and more and more and more and more about ICE, you know? And she was becoming afraid, angry, and stuff like that. And we together made a decision of like, you know what? It seems like it would be beneficial for both of us to stop watching this news anymore, because we kind of become consumed, and that's producing feelings and emotions that are not right, you know. And it was all because of digital media. You know, you don't make the decision of saying, oh, I'm gonna spend 3 hours of my time reading this particular set of news. Like, I want to invest 3 hours on knowing what's going on in Minneapolis. No, it was just what Instagram was pushing on us. You know,
Right.
it's like, oh, we gotta very purposefully stop the consumption of these things because it's not helping emotionally.
No, that's a great. There's this meme where it's a guy looking in the mirror and he says, "You're not addicted to Twitter. You're just monitoring the situation." I think about how these algorithms are just trying to keep you, and that came up on mine when they captured Maduro. It's because I was always reading about the Navy SEALs and all the stuff they're doing. But you're right.
Yeah,
you can
push
us.
it. So I would say, we've talked about physical protection and physical provision, spiritual provision, spiritual protection. I'd say, how about emotional protection and emotional provision?
Yeah.
Right. So we have this situation that is very often where one of the spouses, but let's say the wife, develops emotions for someone at work, or place of work, or church or school or whatever, and the man generally blames the other guy, right? Immediately, it's like, hey, you're trying to take my wife away from me, right? Why are you doing this? Why are you spending so much time together? Blah. We blame the guy, right? But it's and yes, for sure, but also, what did you do to keep your wife's heart close to yours? What did you do? What are the practical ways you worked on keeping your wife's heart tied to yours? Because we have in the Gospels, I've been thinking about this for a little bit, because I find it very thought-provoking. The Father is pleased, delighted in the Son, right? Like in Jesus' baptism, he says, "This is my beloved Son." And I thought, man, have I ever told my teenage son? He's not.
How old is he now?
We're gonna work through it. He's 12. We'll survive. But I don't know if I've ever hugged my son and said, "Hey, you are my beloved son. Like, I'm delighted in you." And I think saying that and hugging, I think his heart will be tied to mine. So then he doesn't need to go outside and look for these fools, this company of fools, to find a place of belonging.
Right.
He would know that he belongs right here. Right.
Yeah, I think that's connected. I was thinking about children too. The phone stuff. Like, I'm trying to.
Oh yeah.
My kids, they the sleepover topic, and these are not topics everybody has to agree with me on. But we don't do sleepovers, and we are really still trying to figure out the timeline for a phone. But basically, at this point, I would say until they're much, much older, like probably their own adults. They're not having a phone from me that can have social media, that can have these things. It might be a texting app or something. And one of the reasons they don't get it, I understand. They have things they want, they're missing out, but the protection aspect is the thing that I just think, well, you can be frustrated with me, but I love you.
Yep.
And I want you to be like, I'll go late and pick you up. And I know it's not the same. Like, I remember giggling at 2 a.m. when we were keeping some friend's dad up. But I've seen enough stories that I just, no, thank you. So
those are good examples of how we kind of talked about protection in the moment. And like the moment is upon us, danger has arrived. Like, you got to go stop the bad guy. But probably the more normal day in and day out protection is this kind of like, how are you being proactive and planning? What decisions are you making or not making about what comes into the life of your family, or what's the environment that you're making? What are the choices that you're making? It's connected.
Yeah. So I'll give you two examples. That one of them's we were going to encounter some people we know and love who had made choices sinful choices of divorce. Obviously, there are times where sin creates a divorce that is not the person responsible, but I would say sinful divorces. And one of the ways as a father, I huddled up my kids and said, I want to put clarity on this situation so that it doesn't so that you are not getting a slow drip of maybe this is part of the normal. Hey, this isn't what God intended as normal. And I want you to know that. Another one, my wife was she was a part of a group of friends that I thought was great for a season, but then we started to notice a concerning trend, and she noticed it. And that was what was really encouraging. I respect about my wife is she noticed that, like, just to speak generally, all of the people in this group, let's say 80% of them in the last 2 years had left their local church to find another. And she was like, I don't think I want to be a part of this group anymore. And I was like, yes, honey, that's the right intuition. You should. This is an optional group. It's not our local church. It was just, you don't want to be around a bunch of ladies who, for whatever reason, it can't be that all of them had the same stories. Right. And what I knew of their stories. And I thought it was great. And that one wasn't as assertive. With my children, I'm like, I'm in charge,
For single men, I'd say if you're dating, you need to protect that woman, and you need to protect that woman from you. Because I think a lot of men that are dating, as they walk in their date, they'd say, "Oh man, if someone comes at us, I'm gonna kill that man." As you are walking to your house to sleep with this woman, making no commitment before marriage.
Yeah.
So you will protect her life, but you're about to go and defile her, by having sex with no commitment. And that's like
the separation from the spiritual and the physical is just not realizing, again, like the spiritual fall happened first, and then that led to all of the choices we make with our physical bodies that are destructive.
There is this stand-up comedian, a woman that has this great bit where she's in a date with a man, and they're at the restaurant, and the man says, "I'll walk you home." And he's like, I don't need you to walk me home. It's like, no, I want to walk you home to protect you. And she says, the most dangerous thing in my walk home is you. It's like, you are going to be the most dangerous thing as I walk home. And because she could see that he was being, deceitful. He wanted to sleep with her and kind of, phrase it as protection. But I think it happens. I think it happens.
Yeah. You want to protect women, men. If you want to respond to this call, you definitely have to stop abusing women. So I guess I would just say that there's a blanket call for men to take seriously the fact that porn is rampant. So if you're contributing to the perpetuation of sexual abuse at scale across our society, there's grace in the gospel, but that grace is clear enough to say, repent.
Yeah, grace leads us out of darkness.
Right. God loves you enough to strongly confront the fact that you are a part of a system of gross sexual abuse. Yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons why, we gotta not a man, no amount of porn is an acceptable amount of porn for men who want to protect women.
Yep. I read something very
Cosign.
very provoking about porn. Is that when you watch porn, when a man watches porn, there is no way, no factual way for you to 100% know and be convinced that what is happening is consensual. Because the characters in porn are being exploited in so many different ways. You know, that you say, no, I'm sure if they're recording that video is because they consented to record that video. No, you don't know if they've been extorted. You know, if there's money involved. You know, you don't know if there's contracts involved. So you might just be watching, most of the time, many times, when you're watching porn, you're watching sexual abuse.
Right. And since there
In
are
one way or another.
and since there are, I mean, it's sinful enough if you were like voyeurism is the criminal term, right? You can get charged with voyeurism if you were peeking in somebody's window and it's a married couple, right? That's sinful enough. That's wicked. But actually there is a degree of heinousness that is further to profiting, you know, to benefiting from the exploitation sexually of somebody. I mean, we just have to take it very, very seriously. And again, seriously enough to say, come into the light. Not that we're trying to shame you into some dark corner.
No.
Come into the light and leave it behind.
Find a friend,
Right?
talk to him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
just like
confess your sin.
be courageous, be a man. Like what, like for the sake of others.
Yeah.
It's obviously you feel the individual guilt and shame of that and the pull to get yourself out of that darkness. But if you want to protect women, then get out of there and stop perpetuating it.
Yeah.
Right. All right. I mean, that's where if it was there's actually some dungeon where that crap takes place. But if it were in the same building as you, nobody would accept the logic of like, well, at least I'll avoid that room. You'd be like, no, this has got to end.
break 'em out.
Yeah, this has got to end,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Right.
passivity, we can't give into that. That's not strength. God gives us strength to help, not to sit still.
Right.
We can't hurt. God gives us strength to help, not to hurt. And then we can't lift ourselves up, right? We're supposed to be lifting others up.
Yep.
So I had written some ideas that I think two of them are much harder than one. The present, engaged, and willing to bleed. So I think willing to bleed is where we give most of our attention and protection. But to be there, and
show up.
there's a strong man in the room, committed to loving others, engaged in what's best for those around them. Well, that's probably 99% of life's protection.
Right.
You know, present, engaged, willing to bleed. Sure, if I got to bleed today, fine. You know, but that's not happening most of the time. It's more actually. I was thinking, man, when I get home, I know 2 of my kids are going to want to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm tired.
Maybe think of a bodyguard that's usually just standing there and just being there.
Yeah.
Bro, I was thinking about exactly that, present and engaged, because with the single men in our world right now, not the Christians in the churches, but the single men in our world, I was thinking, man, the most courageous thing that a guy could do today is pursue a woman, get married, and have children. It's so out of touch with reality right now. Like, nobody wants to get married and have children and be a different man. They say, well, my father abused me, so I don't want to be a father anymore. Like, man, the courage to say, I'm going to be, you use this word all the time, like a pattern-changing person.
Yeah,
What
like
you said about your granddad.
Like a pattern breaker.
Yeah, the pattern breaker. You
Yeah.
say, no, I'm going to be courageous, so I'm going to be a good husband and a good dad.
Yep.
Have 3 kids, be a good father, break the pattern.
Or 7.
Or 7 or
Okay.
14.
Or 14. Now 7's that's what I'm negotiating with my children is 7 each, so that I can give each grandkid a day of the month every month, Grandpa Day, and I can just spend my entire. I mean, I'm probably as soon as there's 28, I'll retire. Like if it's, I don't care what age I'm at, I'm going to Grandpa time all the time.
Right.
I love little kids, but yeah. What else do you think of that we need to cover? We didn't talk about military. We don't necessarily need to, but I think the implications of this, I'm personally uncomfortable. I think it's a sign of our culture's degradation with putting women in the fray of battle.
Combat.
That is different. Yeah, combat is different than saying, can women contribute wonderfully, meaningfully
To the war effort.
to
Yeah.
the war machine? You know, they can.
For sure.
I still am inclined to think, who wants to be? Do men want to be? I mean, like, I've never understood why people would be clamoring to be a part of such a horrible endeavor. Not that all wars are, you know, but it's a nasty thing, right? So I'd love to say, well, hey, you know what? We're striving that you would never have to be as a culture. You know what I mean? Like we're striving for, and this is where people on the, might be ruffled on the podcast, but I would just say, I think it would be a virtue of our culture if we were striving for no woman ever to have to consider serving. Not to say that they could serve in a million other ways, but the idea that the closer you get to combat, the more, you're going to bear the weight of that in a way that I just would love for women to receive the honor. It is not the degradation of women. It would just be like, man, I want somebody to step in so they don't have to,
Yeah.
Just like I would hope that we don't ever have older men, like there's people or children. You don't want children. Nobody wants children soldiers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting application of this. Historically, that's pretty consistent. People thought, do our best to keep women out of the combat. But
I'm gonna recommend the book one more time.
sure.
Yeah. So, guys that are listening, married, unmarried, men, women as well, because it's a book about the definition. So there's a huge book, gigantic, called Rediscovering Biblical Manhood and Womanhood, edited by John Piper and Wayne Grudem. If you grab that book and make it an effort to read it the rest of 2026, if that's the only book you read the rest of 2026, it'll be extremely beneficial.
Yeah.
Now, what I discovered before the class that I taught is that there is a tiny little book that you can read in an evening called What's the Difference? That takes the chapter about the definition from the huge book and just talks about the definition in 4 tiny little chapters. What's the Difference by John Piper.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add?
Do I get a percentage from this? I get a percentage, right?
It'll be very small.
Here's what I'll say.
20 cents.
Reading that book, listening to these episodes, one of the things I think we're trying to do is we're living in a time and culture right now where being a man, it's been, not only has it been kind of distorted and blurred, so we're kind of like, we don't really know what the definition is, we've not been taught it, but there really has, I think, been an effort to remove the possibility of being a man from culture.
Yeah.
So it's like there isn't even a lane for me to be a man. There's not a definition, there's not a path, there's not examples, like there's nowhere. I'm a male, but like, where can I be a man? And you know what I think we do? I think because we innately know, we hear lead, provide, protect, and we think like, like that. I even if you're not a Christian, you get that at some level as a man, and so we run to video games and movies that still have traces of that, we can do it. We can do it in a way that is a simulation where there's no real risk. And I think that is why, especially with video games and like shooter games and stuff, it's like we're drawn to that. Men are drawn to that because they're like, hey, well, here's at least a place I can experience something of what I think I was maybe made for. Is this using my strength for something productive and accomplishing something. And I think when you get the biblical definition for manhood, you actually see like, oh no, all of your life is a playing field to be a man. Like all of your life, there is opportunities. Is anywhere that there's people, anywhere that there's women or children. If you already have a wife and kids, like you have a chance every day to be strong and courageous, provide and protect.
Right. I think that's exactly right. And we've gotten so far away. It's like at one point our culture had lost the gospel, and now it seems like our culture has actually lost Proverbs as well. And you're thinking, every man listening to this podcast is probably going to benefit from a disciplined regiment of Bible reading and a lifting plan. Like literally, our culture you have to say that now. You need to decide. I'm the most overweight on this podcast, and I'll just say it, like, you need to decide to exercise regularly and take seriously the idea that we could live in a culture where you almost can be unable to do the baseline of what God intended. Read your Bible and lift some weights.
Spiritual strength, physical strength.
Yeah. And say, all right, I'm also going to start to look out and then cultivate beyond that the virtue, because I do think it's weird. I got to throw this caveat on it. As strong as I am on men leading, it's amazing to me how the Lord is so against the men of Israel who led. They love the places of greeting in the marketplace. They love the flowing robes. please, as you aspire to be a man who can wield strength, keep chasing primarily being a man worthy of the strength.
I heard someone talk about this as the difference between wanting to be on a platform versus being a pillar. Wanting to be on a platform so people see you and you get the applause, you get the praise, you get people serving you, right? Using your strength to get a platform versus using your strength to serve, to lift others up, to be a pillar, where you can be a humble, strong pillar that maybe isn't even noticed because you're spotlighting and shining, and whether that's your wife, your kids, other men, be a pillar.
Right. That's a great metaphor to see the others orientation of Christ's call for masculine strength.
Let me read the definition of womanhood, because I think it ties to what you guys just said. At the heart of mature femininity is a freeing disposition to affirm, receive, and nurture strength and leadership from worthy men.
Worthy.
Yeah. Boy, we're going to have a podcast on education, because throughout history, it was, what are we trying to make? We're trying to cultivate virtue. And now it's like, well, get them job ready. No, we need men who say inner strength. Let's get it. Let's get it. Inner strength.
All right.
And that's it.
Bring it. What did your mom say?
Bring it.
Bring it.
Man, that story is amazing.